Now, around this time yesterday, we were discussing the horrific circumstances of the death of the toddler Jacob Crouch. Born healthy in February of 2020, died alone in his cot 10 months later. With 39, and I won't go into too much detail because obviously I haven't given you a list of warning, but just briefly, 39 rib fractures, 19 visible bruises, internal injuries, and a pathologist telling the court he had a perforated bowel, which is only brought about with repeated kicking, punching or thumping, whatever it might be. Now, we know that the stepfather, Craig Crouch, was convicted of murder and 3 counts of child cruelty. His mother, Gemma Barton, was cleared of murder, an alternative charge of manslaughter, and 2 counts of child cruelty, but was found guilty of causing or allowing the death of a child on a 3rd count of child cruelty. But here's a question. I'm going to take you through some other instances, all of these sad stories have happened since lockdown. And why is it that, and I appreciate there's a level of charge as well, but why is it that it would appear the mother often gets markedly less than the husband, the father, stepfather, whatever it might be? Alfie Steele, do you remember Alfie Steele? Well, Carla Scott was sentenced for a total of 27 years. Meanwhile, her partner, who carried out most of the attacks, got 32 years. Why would mum get 5 years less? Star Hobson, do you remember Star Hobson? Just 16 months old, murdered by her mother's girlfriend, Savannah Brockhill. Now, the murderer got a life sentence with a minimum term of 25 years. The mother, who obviously didn't get the same conviction, was initially sentenced to just 8 years. Upon review, that did go to 12. But a minimum term for 20. Now, please don't tell me these women didn't know what was going on. So how come there seems to be a degree of leniency for mum? To legal commentator, regularly helps us with legal matters, and director of Mary Monson Solicitors, to be found on Fleet Street in London. Joseph Kotrie-Monson joins me now. Why is it, Joseph? Morning.
Good morning, Nick. Well, what a loaded topic we have today. Tragic case of Jacob Crouch. I don't think anyone has any sympathy for either the mother or the stepfather. You're right. There is a link with COVID. 44 child homicide victims, according to the Police Chiefs Council, from March 20 to March 2021, of victims under the age of 5, shockingly. And that is a rise, almost doubling. Basically, a decision was made that in the context of an illness that predominantly affected the old, the young's rights, as we saw in other, whether for right or wrong, were deprioritised. And in some cases, not just abuse, which the NSPCC warned us about, but in some tragic cases, death. And these cases are filtering through now because paediatric cases, they take longer to come to court. The reason for that is the medical evidence takes time. It's tremendously specialist. That's not the question you're asking me, of course. The mothers. Yeah. Well, first of all, there's a principle, isn't there, that you're convicted and sentenced of the crime that you actually commit. And for the most part, these are not murderers. However reprehensible we find them, Parliament has laid down appropriate sentences for offences such as manslaughter, for offences such as causing or allowing the death of an infant. There is a scale, however, because in some cases there's a recognition that where the man is the primary party, often a stepfather with no bond to the child like the mother has, the man in those circumstances is running a house which is a prison of abuse that the mother is also affected by. Now that, of course, we must say doesn't mean that this mother is not responsible. That's why this offence exists, because there is some responsibility, but there are grades, there are categories 1 to 4. The lowest category, a mother who perhaps knows what's going on, but is so paralysed in the grip of domestic violence that we all have some sympathy for in a general sense, loses some of her ability to act, nevertheless still criminally liable. Starting point 2 years, up to the offences which can get 12 to 14 years, where the mother is almost a willing participant, enjoys it. And I have to say some of the text messages regarding prams being soon available from the mother convicted in this case are particularly odious. That's where those sentences into 9, 10, 11, 12, even up to the maximum of 14 years up after a trial, Nick, may be applicable.
Fantastic background and summary as ever. Thank you for your time. Joseph Kotrie-Monson is legal commentator and director of the firm Mary Monson Solicitors on Fleet Street in London. Thank you for that.